it's worth saying a bit more about making changes. Last week I made a video about New Year's resolutions, and many of you said you had got resolutions, many of you said you didn't do that kind of thing, but that you make changes at any time of the year when you feel inspired or when you feel like you need to, and that is absolutely valid. And I think this is a skill that's worth going deeper with because it's generally useful at any time of year. So let's talk a bit more about making changes. It's so useful to get intentional about the way you live your life. It's so common a phrase that we hear about, oh, life just happened and the thing didn't, and you didn't do what you wanted to do, or you didn't achieve what you wanted to. And sometimes life does happen, sometimes something goes wrong, there's some sort of crisis, and life does get in the way. But so often life happens just because, oh, look at the time, where did that go? You know, you see your deadlines whizzing past, you know, and it just seems like you don't quite know what happened. So I think making conscious changes when you want to, because you want to, is a great way to get just more intentional about, this is what I'm going to do, this is when I'm going to do it, this is how I'm going to do it, and being very deliberate about how you live and what you do. It doesn't mean putting pressure on yourself. A goal isn't something like, it isn't a big stick to beat yourself up with. It's a way of ensuring that life doesn't pass you by, ensuring that the things get done that you really want to do and that are really important to you. So thank you so much for all your comments on the past video, and it brought up some new ideas for me. So let me say three things about that came up from your comments. So the first thing is, there were some of you said, yes, I've got lots of New Year's resolutions. I've got 16 different things that I want to do. Now that's a great way to disappoint yourself. If you've got 16 things you want to remember to do, if you've got more things you want to change than you can even remember in one go, then you're going to get confused and you're probably going to disappoint yourself on at least some of them. So here's the way to do that. If you've got a lot of things that you want to change, it's worth looking for the one that's going to have the biggest leverage, possibly on all the others. I read a great book recently called The One Thing. What is the one thing you could do right now that would make everything else either easier or unnecessary? So for example, one of you said, I don't think I've got your name written down in my notes, but you know who you are. You said the one thing you want to do is to get more sleep. That's a great thing to do to make sure a bunch of other things fall into place. Because if you're getting more sleep, you're getting more rest, you're going to have more energy, and you're probably going to do 6 other things that you wanted to do that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So getting more sleep is a great point of leverage that'll get a lot of other stuff done too. So think about if you've got multiple things you want to change, think about what is the one easy thing that's going to be like a pivot that's going to make a bunch of other things fall. What's going to be the first domino that's going to make all the others start to fall and make everything else easier? That's the first idea. So for example, Rosalind said she's going to pick up her journal and not her phone before she goes to sleep. And that's a great single goal to have, because by picking up a journal and not her phone, not only does she get perspective on her life and get all that emotional release of getting things down on paper every day, she also isn't looking at her phone before sleep, which means she'll sleep better, so she'll feel more rested and more focused, and you can see how that's going to have a knock-on effect on all sorts of other things the next day. So that's a great goal to have. That's a great single goal that'll leverage a whole bunch of others. A second thing to say is, if you've got big goals and very vague goals, you need to think about what's the first step. For example, Castle Mouse says that they want to start producing their music this year. Fantastic goal, go for it. But what does that mean? Producing your music, that's a very big overall vague goal. And it could even feel overwhelming, like it has done for me for years, thinking, this year I'm going to make the peacock dress. And it's such a big goal that it's difficult to think of what's the first step in that. How do you break that down? How am I going to make that happen? It just sits on your mind, and and doesn't get done because it's just too big. So in producing your music, what's the first step? So like for the peacock dress, something fell into place last year that made, because of Bernadette, that made everything else involved in the peacock dress just fall into place. Again, it's that idea of leverage. What's the first step that's going to make everything else fall into place? The other thing to say about having a big goal like that, producing your music, or Rose Quill was saying she's going to write a novel. She's wanted to write a novel for years. This year she's going to finish it. Writing a novel is a big, big goal. So here's when you need to land the plane. This is a phrase we use in my business group when we're talking about a different subject, but just to explain it in the context of making changes. When you're landing the plane, that means that you're taking a very big, vague, airy-fairy sort of goal and you're bringing it down to ground level, something that's achievable and doable and very concrete. So for example, you could say, I'm going to produce my music this year, which is like at 35,000 feet. Or if you land the plane, you say, I'm going to write a song every week, or I'm going to write a verse every week, or it's the little thing that you're going to do, that somebody walking around with a video camera could film you doing that thing, that one thing. So, for example, write a novel, it's kind of up here. If you were going to write a novel, how are you going to bring that back down to earth? Well, you could say, I'm going to write 1,000 words every morning, or 1,000 words every evening, whatever it is. But that brings it down to ground level, where it's something that I know what that looks like. I know what I have to do today. It's very overwhelming to think, I'm going to write my novel today, but to write 1,000 words today, that's doable. And I know that's the way a lot of writers work, that if you just knock out 1,000 words every day, or however much it is, then you're going to get the work done. So it's breaking it down, bringing it down to earth. Take the big goals and bring them down to earth and make them easy to do, make them into bite-sized chunks you can do today. Lastly, I want to say, don't make your goal into a big stick to beat yourself with. Many of you are saying, I don't set New Year's resolutions, I don't set these goals because it's so easy to disappoint yourself. And it does seem like when a lot of people set goals, they tend to make it into a punishment and not something to get excited about. So make it something that's positive and fun and exciting. And that is small enough that you can achieve it and it's easy and you want to do it. Don't make it something that's beating you up about where you are now. Make it something that pulls you forward to an exciting future. So for example, there was a commenter, 994, who said, not to drink when I'm in a bad place and proceed to behave in risky ways. That's a great goal to have. That's a very noble goal to have, but it kind of concentrates on the bad place you're in now, as in it concentrates on the fact that you're drinking too much when you're in a bad place and you're going on to behave in risky ways. What are you going to do instead? Can you think of an alternative habit to replace it that is going to be more positive? What are you going to do in a bad place instead of drinking? So it's not about the bad thing that you're not going to do anymore, but more about what's the good thing or the positive thing or the constructive thing that you're going to do to replace it. So you're using your goal to pull you forward into a place that's exciting rather than beating yourself up about where you've been in the past. I hope that makes sense. So, as I said, if you want to achieve 100 different things and there are a million things you want to change about yourself, think of the one thing that's going to make everything else fall into place, or the one thing that's most likely to make everything else fall into place. Secondly, if you've got very big, vague, high-level goals, bring them down to earth and make them into baby steps. What can you do today towards that goal? And then finally, don't use your goals as a stick to beat yourself with. Make it into something that's exciting and positive, that pulls you forward. Something exciting you want to do rather than something unpleasant that you want to stop doing. Okay? I hope that helps you out. Leave me a note in the comments about what kind of changes that you want to make and how you're going to make them happen. How you're going to make them small enough, doable enough, exciting enough that you're actually going to do them. And I'll see you next week.